Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and this video is a guide for all of the level 60 Primals, or Trials, in Final Fantasy XIV. Think of this as a quick cheat sheet. I'm not going to go in depth on every fight's mechanics, I'm just going to tell you what you need to know if you're going through it for the first time, the most important parts. There are time codes on screen now and in the description, if you want to skip to a specific fight. I will only be covering the first version of the fights, what the game calls hard, the base level encounters, not the extreme versions. That out of the way, let's get started. Ravana doesn't just look like a long-lost, devil-triggered sibling, he's near as good with a blade. The longer the battle goes on, the more stacks of bloodlust he will gain, growing in strength. When he casts Seeing Tail or Seeing Wing, he will generate a shield in a specific direction that automatically counterattacks. In essence, if you see him cast Seeing Wing, then move behind him, or in front of him if you're the main tank, and if he casts Seeing Tail, move to his sides. Other than several fairly weak AoEs you can mostly ignore, you'll want to look out for the butterflies that spawn, Spirit Garner and Moon Garner. Prioritize the Moon Garner, but make sure you kill all of these ads ASAP. If you don't kill them, this happens. Fun fact, whilst grabbing this footage, it was the first time I ever saw that happen, and Ravana's been out for almost half a decade. But once you're in Phase 2, the walls of the arena will start to crumble, meaning you can now fall off the edge. Obviously, you should avoid that if you can. If you see Ravana casting Pillar of Heaven, use Arm's Length or Shorecast or whatever to avoid being knocked back. Or at least make sure you'll be knocked back into safety and not off the edge. Finally, if you see orbs, avoid them, as they'll explode in an AoE, hitting everyone near the impact point. Bismarck is a non-traditional fight. Most of it will be spent dealing with ads and protecting the island that you're standing on. For the most part though, you kill a group of ads, and after that the dragon killers will be ready. One player needs to activate each of them on the sides of the island. They'll harpoon the whale, drawing him in close. Once he's been pulled in, you must stand on the boss to damage him, even if you're a ranged character. It's possible to one-phase this, and hopefully you will, but if your DPS isn't up to scratch, it might take two. If that's the case, it will repeat the first part again. Group of ads, dragon killers, jump on whale, smack whale. It is smart to save your cooldowns for this burst phase when you're mounted on the boss. Following the destruction of his protective layer, the boss will move away and summon two large, dragon-like enemies. One is green, one is blue. The main tank and off-tank will each take one and tank them on opposite sides of the island, next to the dragon killers preferably. Watch out for tornadoes and bubbles during this phase, and after both have been defeated, the boss will use his super attack and then summon more ads, which can be grouped up. Whilst taking them out, take care for their knockback abilities that can push you off the edge. Once the ads are dealt with, use the dragon killers again, and then stand on the boss once he's drawn in to finish him. If you are a melee character, it's worth using a limit break the moment you mount the boss, and likewise use all of your cooldowns. You should be able to one-phase this as well, hopefully. The fabled Knights of the Round make their appearance at long last. The standard version of this fight is more of a visual spectacle than a real challenge, but there's a lot of mechanics taking place and it's important to make note of them, if only as practice for later fights, or the extreme version of this fight. During the first phase, Thordan will use Dragon's Gaze, which you simply need to turn away from as with all other gaze attacks. This first phase should go by very quickly, and soon Thordan will leave the arena and have his knights keep you busy. This part of the fight is more about dealing with mechanics than dealing damage. Kill any you can target and avoid AoEs as need be. Not long into it, two knights will spawn and have strong tank buster-like abilities. You'll probably want one tank for each of them, but these days it's entirely possible, maybe even preferable for one tank to deal with both of them. Finally, there will be meteor circles to deal with. Simply kill them before the meteors drop, and then Thordan will unleash his ultimate attack. The rest of the fight needs no explaining, at least for normal. Your first fight with Nidhogg was just the smallest taste compared to his true strength he'll be unleashing against you. When he uses Hot Wing, you'll need to stand directly under his body. Later on, he'll use Hot Tail, which is the opposite, move away from the centre of his body. Other than various AoEs, he'll soon move into phase 2, the Add phase. Nidhogg will spawn 3 dragons, one of which, I believe the one in the middle, can't be provoked or tanked, so this is the one you want to take out first. Following their death, Nidhogg will take on a new form and launch lots of large AoEs, but otherwise nothing too specific to note about this phase. Finally, Nidhogg will take some cues from Godzilla and really heat things up. It's during this phase that he'll start using Hot Tail immediately after Hot Wing. And if you see him casting Akmon, this is a stack marker, but a continuous one that hits very hard multiple times. These days the damage isn't nearly as terrifying as it was back at release, but you should still respect it. Just remember not to leave the stack until the final hit. The large fire orbs Nidhogg spawns will detonate in a sort of plush shape, and he'll use his other phase 1 mechanics until you defeat him, and put an end to the 1000-Year War. Sephirot's first phase involves stack markers, individual AoEs and targeted abilities. If he uses Ein, he'll target one player and direct a cone-shaped AoE at them. Just move behind him to avoid it. Soon enough, Add phase. Nothing particular to note here, just burn them down in moments. Following this, Sephirot will fight you from the edge of the arena, so take care not to get too close to him and jump off. When he spawns blue circles, stand next to, but not in them, on the edge closer to the centre of the arena, as they will push you in that direction. When 2 players are marked with distinct icons above their head, he will launch 2 powerful cleaves in their direction. They are cone-shaped, so there's multiple ways to deal with this. You can either both go to opposite sides while the rest of the party stand in the middle, or both players can go to one side and the raid move to the opposite side. Probably better in my opinion just to go to opposite sides. Important thing is just to leave a safe space for people to stand. When he spawns an ad at the back of the arena, kill it ASAP, as you will then need to stand on it when he places a stack marker there to avoid his giant clothes-lining arm sweep, which is an insta-kill if it hits you. He'll also spawn pillars, but by now you should know how to deal with these. Just have at least one player stand in each pillar, preferably tanks or other high hit point jobs. Sophia, the prophet of knocking people off platforms, ramps things up a little bit from Sephiroth. Her Thunder 2 is a cone that hits in front of Sophia, whereas Thunder 3 is a large circular AoE. You can avoid it by standing either directly on top or underneath the boss, or moving very far away from her. Just don't run off the edge as she's doing this later on in the fight. She'll send her giant head thing off to launch at you now and then, so just watch where it is and don't stand in front of it. She also has an arrow-based knockback. If you see her casting it, make sure your back isn't against an edge, as the knockback is centered from her hitbox. So watch out for that if your tank is tanking her right by the edge for some reason. In the Add phase, she'll spawn first, second, and third ads, the demiurges or something. Kill the second one first, the healer ad, then kill the third, the dragoon ad, and finally the paladin ad. So second, third, first. In the final phase, the walls are gone and Sophia will use an ability called Quasar to tip the scales of the arena. This mechanic works as follows. Meteor lines will slowly descend on one side of the arena, or maybe both sides. When they impact, the arena will tilt in whichever direction had the most meteors. There are blue meteors and orange meteors, and one blue meteor is worth like 3 orange. Best way to think of it, if you see a meteor on the left side, move to the right. If you see multiple meteors, move to whichever side has less. If you're seeing blue, always move to the opposite side from the blue meteor. It sounds a little confusing, but in practice it's very simple and straightforward and intuitive. Otherwise, her final phase is very similar to her first, just with a higher chance of you falling off the edge. The last and clearly coolest of the Warring Triad, Zurvan begins the fight chained up. If you think of the arena as a clock, wherein the group spawns in at 6 o'clock, the tank should begin the fight at 3 o'clock, then move counterclockwise with Zurvan, so up to 12 o'clock and so on, as he'll destroy the arena piece by piece, whilst also targeting the tank with large cleaves. Eventually, once there's only one slice of the arena left, Zurvan will break free and begin the second phase. When Zurvan uses Biting Halberd, move behind him. When he does Southern Cross, and this is important, especially for the extreme version, stack up during the cast process, then split up after he casts it. Getting into that habit is just very important. Zurvan also has an attack called something like Cyclical, where you need to stand close to him, and the opposite version called Tail End, where you move away from him. Then he'll bring out the ad phase, kill the ads that cast a Meteor ASAP. Then, after Zurvan says something like Afro Mazda, the final phase begins. Watch out for Infinite Fire and Infinite Ice. You will be marked with either Ice or Fire, blue or red. If you are marked red, stand in the red circle when it spawns, and vice versa. If the fight drags on, Zurvan's tank buster will grow increasingly powerful, to the point where you may not be able to contain it. Thankfully, he should be dealt with long before it becomes an issue these days. And that's it for Heavensward. I hope this video was useful. If there's anything I missed or you have questions about, please do ask them down below in the comments. And the next video will feature the level 70 trials of Stormblood. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Ciao.